Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and delete my bullet prefab from here. Or, we'll leave it in there for a second. I'm just going to open up my ship script. And what we're going to do is we're going to create the code where we hit the spacebar and it fires our rocket. Okay. Now, if you remember from our rocket, or from our the last tutorial, the bullet prefab has a rigid body on it. And with a rigid body, it has physics and force and gravity and all that good stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable. And it's going to be a public variable because we want to be able to access it from our editor. And we're going to give it the data type rigid body. Now, what that means is when I go ahead and create a rigid body that's called rocket prefab, right? What it's saying is, if you look at these other ones, ship lives can hold integers. A variable is just a temporary storage place, right? So it can hold an integer of 3. When we make it a public rigid body rocket prefab, when I hit Control S here, that ship variable can now hold anything that has a rigid body attached, which is our bullet prefab. So even if I delete this from our scene, well, let's go back to models and let's drag it from here so it knows where to access it. Is it this guy? Oh, you know what? I never updated. Here, let me undo that. Let me hit apply, and you'll see that it updates our bullet prefab here. So now that it has the rigid body attached. So I'll drag this here, and I'll delete this guy. And you can see now when I select my ship, it has that bullet prefab, which is this guy. But we're not actually firing it yet, right? And we want to fire it from the y-axis. So let's go back to our code. And I'm going to do this in update. And what I want to do here is I'm just going to say if we do something, which is we touch our spacebar, right? So I'm going to say input dot get key down, and what this does is when the key, whatever key I press is down, it's going to do something. We haven't decided what it's going to do yet. And the key I want is space. And I already showed you in the other tutorial, there's a bunch of these pre-made words that are mapped to keys. So the word space is actually mapped to the spacebar. So the way you spawn pretty much anything inside of Unity is to use the keyword instantiate, which is another pre-made method inside of Unity. So instantiate actually takes 3 parameters. The first one is the origin. See, like, what is the actual object that we're going to use, right? Well, we have this rocket prefab up here, so I'm just going to paste that in here. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to hit enter another semicolon. And you can see as I switch around, where does the position? Well, if I just write the word transform dot position, what it'll do is it'll instantiate it at the current position of whatever the script is attached to. So what is this current script attached to? Our ship. So it's going to spawn something, our rocket, at the current position. There's a problem. We also have a third parameter, which is our rotation, right? How do we want it rotating? I just want it to, the certain rotation or the axis of the rotation to be just set to the rotation of our object. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit Control S here to save that. And let's press play. You can see that now it shoots. Now it's actually shooting out of the center of my object. And because this object has collision on it, it's rolling off the side of it. And here's our center point. Okay? Another way we can do it is by creating a separate object that's like a, it's sort of an empty game object that serves as a gun. I don't think I'm going to do that this tutorial. What I want to do is sort of like, I'm just going to keep it as is. It'll sort of be like this gun that sort of shoots off the side, just to save time. And we'll do separate guns when we get into our first-person shooter tutorial. So for now, let's go ahead and create our enemy. So I'm going to go to Game Object, Create Other, and I'm just going to make a capsule. All right? And let's go ahead and zero all of this out. And let's focus. Let's make sure he's directly above our ship so that when he does shoot, it makes contact. I'm going to scale this up. Let's name this capsule enemy. And I'm going to drag the enemy into my models folder here. And I'm going to rename this guy enemy prefab. Alright, it should update in there. Perfect. The next thing I'm going to do is make a script. I'm going to call it enemy. Let's go ahead and open that up. Alright, in update, we want to do the same thing that we did with both our bullet and our player ship. So I'm going to make a public integer, and I'm going to call it enemy speed equal to 0. So now we can control that. And then inside of update, I'm going to do transform dot translate vector 3, and we're going to go, this guy's going down because he's coming towards our ship, times, let's copy enemy speed here, paste that in here, times time dot delta time. Okay. And we want it to go, let's see how our any prefab moves. Let's go to enemy here. Alright. Take a look at our code one last time, make sure everything's okay, save that. Alright, now if I press play, I'm going to move this guy up. He should start to go down and attack our enemy. Oh, same mistake as last time. So let's make our enemy speed 3. There we go. He's moving down towards our guy. Alright, he might be too big, so let's make him a little bit harder to hit. Let's go into models. I'm going to go ahead and create a enemy material. And I'm going to make this red. Vertex lit. Make it red. Actually, that kind of looks cool. Alright, I'm going to hit Control S to save my level. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is the same thing we did with the bullet. So our current ship is, the height is what? Let's say 7? 6? We'll do 6.5. So we want it to start at 6.5, and then we don't want it to surpass minus, let's say minus 6, minus 5. Yeah, we'll say minus 6. And once it reaches down here, we want it to respawn up top. Okay, so let's take a look at how we code that. Well, we want to get the current position of our object, right? So let's think about wrapping this all in an if statement. So we're going to say if transform dot position dot y is less than or equal to minus 5.5. So if the enemy ship is current position is less than or equal to 5.5, we want to set our object's current position. So let's store our object's current position. So we're going to say vector 3 temp. So we're just creating a temporary variable here that's storing the current position. So this is kind of an easy way of doing it. So if you say transform.position like this, it'll store every frame, it'll store the current position. So if our current position equals 5.5, I'm going to set the temporary position temp.y equal to minus 5.5 f. And I actually have to put an f behind this. This is a floating point number. That means it has a decimal value, so you have to put an f behind it. Okay? But that doesn't actually set the position. We're just saying that the y position of temp, because temp stores 3 positions, we actually have to say transform dot position equals temp. So this line here actually sets the current position to whatever the value temp is storing, because temp is just a variable, right? And it's storing all 3 positions, and then one of the positions, the x, y, z, the y, we're going to set to negative 5.5 if and only if, oh, we want to set this to positive 6.5 because we want to go up, right? Because our guy up here is at 6.5? Yeah, about 6.5. So I'm going to hit Control S to save this. I'm going to press play. And does he keep going? Does keep going. Let's see. Did I save it? Did I forget to save it? Let's see. Alright, so the Y position here definitely goes to negative. Let's see what happens if I press play down there. There we go. There we go. It resets the position. I just forgot to save it. Alright, so the next one, let's take a look at creating some bullet shooting and killing our enemy ship.